Our theme this month is It All Comes Down to Love. It all comes down to love. And speaking of love, happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. We will be loving up, sharing wisdom, and highlighting and shining the light on the extraordinary contributions Black Americans have given us in our shared American history and our culture. And we're just so excited to celebrate them. So one of the main tenets in our teaching here in New Thought is that science and spirituality are inextricably connected. We talk about this all the time around here. And building on the research and the wisdom of Carl Sagan, the astrophysicist Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson explained that atoms in our bodies trace to the remnants of exploded stars. He said, we are alive in the universe, and the universe is alive within us. For this reason, he writes, we are biologically connected to every other living thing in the world. We are chemically connected to all molecules on Earth. And we are atomically connected to all atoms in the universe. We are not figuratively, but literally stardust. Oh, God bumps. Isn't that the coolest thing? I remember when I first heard this concept, it literally blew my mind. How science proves our oneness, because the same stardust that is in me is within Jen, and within Betty, and within Darcy and Brian, with all of you at home. It's the same shared stardust. And I've learned over the years that the more that I embrace this scientific fact that the ancients, of course, knew and wrote about thousands of years ago, the more my own interpersonal relationships improve. And the more my interactions with, let's say, folks who may be a little kerfuffly improve. So, not that long ago, I was on a plane. And I got on the plane, and as I was walking onto the plane, there was no one behind me. It wasn't a very full flight that I could see. And I had my little carry-on, and I was sitting on the aisle this particular flight. And so I put my stuff, my book down, and I was taking my little carry-on and putting it right at maybe 40 seconds to put your carry-on into the spiely-do above you, overhead. Thank you very much. So as I'm doing this, and I'm just living my best life, there is a voice behind me that very angrily and very loudly says, "Excuse me, honey, speed it up. You're backing us all up here." And that's about 10% of the energy that was thrown my way. I don't want to put all of it into this beautiful sanctuary. And so in that moment, literally my body froze, and I did one of those slow, are you kidding me? So I had that normal human reaction, and then I got to take a deep breath and practice what I preach. Those of you who just finished my forgiveness workshop, as I was closing the overhead and grabbing my back, I'm literally saying to myself, I bless you, I forgive you, I release you to love, I bless you, I forgive you, I release you to love. Now, I'm wearing a mask and she's wearing a mask. But the second I began that beautiful mantra of forgiveness, in that moment, my whole body shifted. It went from to soft edges. And as I was silently saying that to myself and sitting in my seat, I realized immediately that this woman was really anxious about flying. And that came out of her fear. That it wasn't really 40 seconds, it wasn't that. It was her fear. And so I sat down, and she was sitting down next to me, and everything was dropping, and the snacks and all the earplugs and the things and all these, the pillows and the foot thing, all these things to make her, very short flight, comfortable. And so I just started really blessing her, just started really silently blessing her. And I got my book out. I started reading my book, and I'm just blessing her. And then I'm like completely and totally fine. It's like I've forgotten it. And in that moment that I forgot it, I remembered my younger self, myself before I found this teaching, and how I would have been having an entirely different internal conversation. I would have been passively, aggressively not handing her the pretzels or the ginger ale. I would have been looking at my book but not reading it, thinking about how could that woman speak to me, and all the things. None of it. I was sitting there thinking, oh, wow, she must be really afraid. She must be in a lot of pain. I'm just going to bless her. And then I start reading my book. We take off, 45 minutes into the flight. She taps me on the shoulder, and she says, "Excuse me," and I'm thinking, huh? Yes? I bless you, I forgive you, I release you to love. And she says, "I am so sorry. That was so rude of me, the way I spoke to you. I am so," and I was like, "You are so dear. Oh my, honey, it's fine." "I'm just terrified." "It's okay. Listen, it's good." And we had this beautiful conversation of shared humanity. I got to see her heart in that moment. She got to see my heart in that moment. We recognized in that moment our shared stardust. My talk today is called Our Shared Stardust. Every one of us has unskilled moments, right? Every one of us. And the gift of this community, the gift of this teaching, is that when you practice the spiritual principles that we offer, that we teach, that we live, that we breathe, those unskilled moments, either our own or others, are forgiven so much more quickly. There's less hang time, There's less inner turmoil. There's that, "Oh, you are so dear, I'm so sorry" moment. And the reason for us to live this in the world is to recognize, even to the greatest extent we possibly can while we breathe our breath, is that we belong to each other. Every single one of us belongs to one another, sharing this stardust. I don't know about you, but I have been so very pulled to pray for and send love to our sisters, brothers, and siblings at our country's borders right now. There is so much happening to these members of our human family who are fleeing violent regimes and coming here to the United States in hopes of a safe, better life. I read recently about a 21-year-old Venezuelan fellow named Ofer, who, in the article, he would only use his first name because of his fears for his family's safety back in Venezuela. And speaking in Spanish through a translator in the article, he described this harrowing journey of his, months and months and months. He shared that it took him months and months of walking, of hitchhiking, of jumping on buses, crossing dangerous border after dangerous border after dangerous border to get here in hopes of safety. He passed through Ecuador, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico to get here. 21 years old. only to be sent on a plane from Texas, along with 20 other people who had nothing but the clothes and babies on their backs, to be dropped off in Sacramento and left there on the street. Thankfully, there was an interfaith coalition of synagogues and Christian churches and mosques who took them in and provided for them. And really what we're seeing around the country is faith communities much like ours seeing the stardust in these beloveds and choosing to support and help them. And, the ancient spiritual mandate to support immigrants in the ancient world was crystal clear. It is mentioned multiple times across many faith traditions. In the Hebrew Bible, it says, the foreigners residing among you must be treated as native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. From the Christian Bible, in Matthew, it is written, for I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. The overwhelming vast majority of people who are arriving at our borders are arriving seeking asylum from authoritarian, violent regimes. Ofer said in the article that I read that he made that whole journey. He hopes to make enough money so that he can help his mother survive the economic and political chaos of his homeland. We share Ofer's stardust and the stardust of every single person who has made or is currently making this journey. So, what can we do? I'm often asked that question. Well, what can I do? What can I do about this? Well, I have an answer for you. We have a beautiful volunteer ministry here we like to call our Angel Ministry, and it's part of our Spirit-led social action initiative. We're big on that around here. And we're going to be putting together, this will be our third round of refugee kits for our newly arrived sisters, brothers, and siblings. And not only here in our community, but also NTCSL Colorado, we're going to be having a meeting on February 18th. So I just invite you to save that date. It'll be after service, and you can learn all the ways in which you can create a kit, meaning, again, because they arrive with absolutely nothing. So they need pots and pans, like a kitchen kit, or diapers and, baby things. There are many baby things that are needed, that kind of thing. So please watch for that. It, for me, feels so not only imperative, but deeply aligned with our teaching to pray and to put love to our feet, to do this work in the world. Bell Hooks, the great Bell Hooks, wrote, "The practice of love is the most powerful antidote to the politics of domination." The practice of love is the most powerful antidote to the politics of domination. It all comes down to love, my friends. It all comes down to love. And neuroscientists understand this. Neuroscientists believe that the areas of the brain typically activated by our own emotions are also active when we observe another person experiencing feelings or sensations. It's called the mirror neuron system. And it is directly linked to our ability as human beings to have empathy and compassion. These neurons of ours, which are located in multiple places in our brains, reflect or mirror to us the pain of others. It is why the moment that I explained to you all here and you at home how far Ofer had walked, how he had made his journey, it's why we all collectively felt compassion. The reason for that is our own mirror neurons were firing in that moment. When we see someone in pain, our brain registers it as if we are in pain. That is how connected we are. That is why we feel fear, worry, concern, pain when others are experiencing it. This is the power of the stardust that we share. Last week, Shelley shared, and again, I'm telling you, if you have not seen that talk, she told one of the best stories. I'm not going to give it away, but if you have not seen it, really, it's fantastic. She shared this idea of magic, the magic and the alchemy that happens when we decide to turn our own pain into service for others, right? And the power of that. She shared that holy power of being in service to others transforms our own pain. Because in community, we get to support one another, whatever it is that we may be going through. This is part of our path as people of faith. We get to support those in our community. When I say our community, I'm talking here in the room, I'm talking online, Colorado, whatever state you may be or country you may be. You are part of the spiritual community, and we get to support each other. In fact, what we know is that the data shows that in faith communities, people who regularly participate in communities like ours are likely to live longer than those who do not. In fact, people connected to communities of shared purpose are found to be less lonely, more hopeful, more motivated, and more fulfilled. Isn't that great? So when you come to services, when you watch our services, you are literally making a healthy choice for your body temple, for your whole being. We get to support each other in this. So I have a spiritual practice that I would like for us to do collectively. This is the first Sunday of the month. And so I want to begin a tradition or a ritual. Human beings, we crave ritual and tradition that is meaningful and anchored and true for us. And I want to bring that into our community the first Sunday of every month. It speaks to our shared stardust. I know that there are those of you here in this community and online who are currently actively grieving the passing, the transition, or the death of a loved one. I know because I'm with you in that experience. I share that stardust with you. And we all do, every single one of us. And so what I'd like to begin is this tradition of all of us once a month saying a blessing, holding space for those in our community who need support, who are in grief. So in a moment, I am going to ask, not quite yet, but in a moment, I'm going to ask John to put up a split screen with a blessing. So first, I'd like anyone here who is experiencing the grief or mourning the transition or passing of a loved one to just gently put your hand on your heart. Those of you at home, please do that as well. And the rest of us are going to give you a blessing from our heart. And so, John, I invite you to please place that up on the split screen. Thank you. We're going to say this 3 times. So those of you with your hands on your heart, please receive this blessing from your beloved community, and the rest of us will begin. You, beloved, are not alone in this. We are with you. We hold your grief with love, and we surround you in grace as you make your way through this time. You, beloved, are not alone in this. We are with you. We hold your grief with love, and we surround you in grace as you make your way through this time. You, beloved, are not alone in this. We are with you. We hold your grief with love, and we surround you in grace as you make your way through this time. And so it is. Let's all take a deep breath. We get to heal, and we get to be healed in this community. That is what community is. We feel the pain of others. We are wired that way. And, my friends, just as importantly, we feel the joy of others. It's a both and. We feel the joy of others. So way back in the 1990s, there were some scientists, way back in the 1990s, I say. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome for that. You're welcome for that. Oh, way back in the olden times. In Italy, there was scientific experiments going on, and they were looking at the brains of monkeys. And they were, the monkeys were wearing those helmets, and they were living their best life, being monkeys. And the scientists were observing different things. And at one point, one of the scientists decided to take a break. And because it was Italy, he went and got himself a gelato. And he came back into the room where the monkeys were, and he was eating his gelato, and he noticed, as he was eating that marvelous dessert, the brains of the monkeys, certain areas, started lighting up like Christmas trees. And he realized, because the monkeys weren't eating the gelato, he was eating the gelato. He realized in that moment, oh my goodness, their neurons are firing because I am experiencing delight. They were watching him, and they were feeling into the joy of what it was like to eat that gelato. I don't know if he shared any at any point, but that led to many, many further studies for the decades following. And again, it brings it back to this idea of our mirror neuron system, this incredible idea that when we experience joy and when we share that joy, others experience it as if they are eating the same gelato. Isn't that wonderful? I think sometimes in our culture, not always, but I think sometimes we tend to temper our joy a little bit. Have you ever noticed that? It's that thing, like I know when I was younger, I am and always have been a glasses overflowing kind of person. And I learned very early in my life that irritated some people. I still have people come up to me and say, you're not for real, right? You cannot be this happy. And I'm like, I am, actually. I am a joyful person. Yes, I feel deeply. I feel everything. I get sad, and just like everybody else, and angry and all the things. But I have an awful lot of joy in me. And reading this and understanding this reminded me how important it is to actually share our joy, to not feel guilty about sharing our joy, especially if someone is going through a difficult time. Here in the West, we've been trained to sort of, let them have their pain and don't try to bring in happiness or joy. It has to be authentic. It has to be real. What I'm telling you, biologically, is one of the ways we can support those in pain is to share joy, to share happiness, to share the good things, to find the funny. It's one of the reasons why humor is so important in spiritual community, to keep a sense of humor. We can get very, very serious about all of this God stuff, can't we? It's really, really important that we share our joy with each other, that we share this stardust with each other. So I invite you this week, as you go out into your week, to share the joy, to bless those in grief, to recognize wherever you are, in a bank, at the store, on a plane, that we share each other's stardust. And in this, I want to close with a poem written by John Rodell. So just let this wash over you. He writes, "You are somebody's front porch to God. You are someone's doorway to mercy. You are the world's threshold to kindness. You are my entrance to letting go of regret. No pressure, but your life is a gateway to peace for both strangers and friends alike. Whether you realize it or not, empathy has chosen you to turn your heart into a welcome mat for others. This is one of the purposes of your life, to let your existence become a candlelit veranda of hope for the rest of us to gather on as we hold each other close during the long, dark night."